Welcome to Horror Year, where every story is a journey into the unknown. If you're brave enough to face your darkest fears and uncover the most chilling tales, you've come to the right place. So, dim the lights, turn up the volume, and subscribe to Horror Year. Your journey into terror begins now. Decades had passed since the ancient orphanage on the hill was abandoned, a dilapidated reminder of a different time. However, residents continued to narrate tales of the kids who had previously resided there and the atrocities they had suffered at the hands of the vicious matron. The children's voices, they claimed, could still be heard on quiet nights, resonating down the deserted hallways with a melancholic lullaby. A gang of youngsters dared each other to investigate the orphanage one rainy evening. Seeking excitement, they were keen to demonstrate that they had no fear of ghosts. Equipped with torches and confidence, they ascended the slope while chuckling and making small talk as they neared the structure. The huge, dilapidated foyer was visible when the front door creaked open. The smell of mildew and dust filled the air. The teenagers divided apart, each spending time exploring a distinct area of the institution. The mood started to shift as they strolled along the quiet, dark hallways. The giggling subsided and was replaced by an increasing discomfort. The structure appeared to encircle them, its walls whispering tales from a bygone era. They started to notice it one by one, a lullaby-like ghostly tune. With every step they made, the sound could be heard more loudly in the hallways. They followed the sound to a big, deserted space that had once served as the kids' dorm. A lone, broken piano stood in the center of the space. The wood was chipped and splintered, and the keys had yellowed with age. However, the teens stared in fear as the piano started playing a spooky lullaby all by itself. The room's corners started to move with the growing coldness of the air. The teenagers retreated, but a solid wall had taken the place of the door they had come through. The lullaby became more urgent and louder as the shadows drew nearer. The sound of high-pitched, strange youngsters laughing suddenly filled the room. The shadows became the shapes of spectral children, with twisted smiles and empty eyes. With their laughter echoing in their ears, they encircled the teenagers. The piano was playing more quickly, with erratic and furious sounds. As they surrounded the teenagers and dragged them into the shadows, the children's laughing turned to screaming. Long after they had left, the piano's eerie tune continued to play. That was the last thing they heard. The ghosts of the orphanage's past stood motionless and empty once more, waiting for the next set of misguided people to disrupt their rest. With great expectations, Emma moved into her new flat. It was unexpectedly roomy, had a fantastic view of the city, and was reasonably priced. The landlord was keen to rent it out and made an irresistible offer. But it was not the chilly November air leaking in through the windows that chilled her as she unloaded her possessions. Odd things started happening as soon as she moved in. Little things at first, like flickering lights, footsteps in the hallway when no one was around, and an unsettling sense of being watched. Emma dismissed it as moving-related stress. However, the sensation intensified daily, an imperceptible force that seemed to permeate into her bones. She heard a whisper one night when she was lying in bed. It was there, clearly visible but faint, nearly invisible. Leave. Emma sat up, racing heart. With the exception of the dim light from the city peeking through the drapes, the room was pitch black. She strained to hear, but there was no sound in the flat. She made herself go back to sleep by telling herself it was all in her head. However, the murmurs persisted. They became more demanding and louder every night. She could feel them reverberating through the walls, making her anxious. Emma deteriorated into a shadow of her former self, scared and tired, but unable to leave the flat that had seemed like the ideal place to live only a few weeks earlier. The whispers intensified one evening, turning into a chorus of voices yelling for her to go. Emma took her phone and took off running from the flat, not pausing until she was on the street below. She departed during the night, leaving everything she possessed behind without turning around. The landlord was taken aback to see the apartment unoccupied the following day. When he tried to reach Emma, her phone was not connected. Once again, the apartment was silent, waiting for its next casualty. Jordan has a natural attraction to the uncharted. He liked to explore abandoned buildings in urban areas, so when he learned about the structure on the outskirts of town, he had to investigate it. It was an ancient apartment building that had been abandoned for a long time due to several mysterious disappearances. The residents shied away from it, saying the location was cursed. Jordan rejected the idea of curses. Taking out his camera and flashlight, he started to take pictures of the collapsing building. The building, with its broken windows, peeling wallpaper, and general sense of forgotten misery, was exactly as creepy as he had imagined. But what really caught his attention was the basement. As if someone, or something, wanted to prevent whatever was within from leaving, the cellar door was locked with thick chains. As Jordan broke free from the chains and pulled open the door, his heart leaped with anticipation. The air in the dark, musty cellar was heavy with the smell of mold and rot. As he went down the steps, his flashlight flickered and lit up a big empty room. However, upon more investigation, he discovered the basement was everything from vacant. There was a small door in the far corner, lost in the darkness. It hung precariously on its hinges, old and rotting. After a brief pause, Jordan pushed the door open. There was a tiny room with no windows behind it. Shelves lined the walls, each containing jars that had become dusty over time. Jordan stepped forward, his interest overriding his caution. Strange, indiscernible items were inside the jars. Some carried what appeared to be hair, some held bones, and still others held a murky, dark liquid. But his attention was drawn to the biggest jar. Something that appeared to be a heart was within. It was still beating erratically, as though it were alive. With a gasp of terror, Jordan dropped his flashlight. As it rolled over the floor, it created a riot of shadows. Something stirring in the shadows, startled by his presence, was what he heard. His hands trembling, he scurried to get the flashlight. He spotted them when he eventually got hold of it and turned the light back on. Pale and haggard figures emerged from the shadows. Their mouths were contorted into hideous smiles, and their eyes were hollow. Jordan let out a scream and spun to flee, but the figures moved too quickly. He was pulled into the darkness as they gathered about him. The cellar door forcefully closed and the chains resurfaced as though they had never been broken. The building was silent again, its mystery preserved for another day. These are only a handful of the terrifying stories included in Scary Basements, Apartments, and Orphanages. Horror stories to keep you up at night. Every one of them serves as a reminder that some locations are best left unaltered, their secrets lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered by the next unfortunate person.